Let me tell you a story about how a government can destroy itself from within, because that's what is happening right now. Donald Trump has turned his own Treasury Department into a battlefield of greed, corruption, and self-interest. The people he trusted most are the ones tearing it apart piece by piece. And the result is chaos disguised as leadership. When Trump appointed Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary, it wasn't because Bessent was the best man for the job. It was because he was loyal. Bessent wasn't a civil servant. He was a hedge fund operator, a Wall Street insider who made millions by betting on the failure of others. Now that same man controls the Treasury, the heart of the nation's financial system, and he's using it to enrich the same kind of people who caused the last economic crash. From the very beginning, the signs were there. Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., launched an investment company called 1789 Capital. On the surface, it looked patriotic. The name referenced the year the Constitution took effect. But behind that name was a scheme that blurred the line between government and business. They announced a major event called the United States Treasury AI Summit. It used the official Treasury seal. It listed Secretary Scott Bessent as the keynote speaker. It promised investors a direct line to decision-makers. It was sold as a government event, but it wasn't. It was a private fundraiser designed to make money for Trump's circle. They were selling access, not ideas. When the media caught on, they panicked. They scrubbed the Treasury logo from their website. They renamed the event simply the AI Summit. They denied everything, but everyone knew what it was, a blatant attempt to cash in on the illusion of power. That alone should have been enough for an investigation. But there was something much bigger brewing behind the scenes, a $20 billion bailout for Argentina. On paper, it was called a currency stabilization program. In reality, it was a lifeline for Trump's friends and financial allies. The Treasury, under Bessent's authority, approved the transfer of $20 billion in U.S. funds to Argentina's central bank. The stated goal was to strengthen international partnerships and stabilize global markets. But when journalists began to dig deeper, they found a web of connections that pointed back to the same small circle of wealthy investors. Two names kept appearing: Stan Druckenmiller and Robert Citrone. Both had deep ties to Bessent. They had worked together at George Soros's old fund years ago. Both had poured money into Argentina's debt markets. And when the bailout happened, both made enormous profits. That's not economic policy. That's insider dealing on a global scale. Bessent wasn't helping a foreign country. He was helping his friends. And he did it with American tax dollars. Argentina has defaulted 9 times. Every major analyst said the country was too risky to bail out. Even the International Monetary Fund had already warned against further lending. But Trump's Treasury ignored those warnings. Because this wasn't about policy. It was about loyalty. Javier Milei, Argentina's president, had modeled himself after Trump. He called himself the mini-Trump of South America. He praised Trump in speeches and promised to mirror his policies. This bailout wasn't for Argentina. It was for Trump's political brand. The money wasn't even well protected. Reports suggest that most of it disappeared into a maze of offshore accounts. Argentina's inflation didn't improve. Its economy continued to fall. The bailout failed. But Trump and Bessent didn't care. The goal was never stability. The goal was payoff. Senator Elizabeth Warren demanded answers. Economists called the deal reckless. Watchdogs asked for transparency. But the Treasury refused to explain anything. They called it a confidential foreign agreement. They said releasing details would threaten national security. In truth, it would threaten their careers. And while this was happening, the smaller scandals continued. 1789. Capital kept operating quietly, raising money through the same networks that had been exposed before. Don Jr. continued to pitch patriotic investments in technology, crypto, and AI. The company used the same talking points, the same donors, the same connections. They just learned how to hide the trail better inside the Treasury. Bessent's power kept growing. During the government shutdown, he made himself indispensable. He decided which payments went out and which didn't. He made sure the military was funded while freezing aid to schools, hospitals, and federal workers. It was a display of control that showed everyone exactly who held the real power in Washington. and Trump praised him for it. He called Bessent a financial genius. He said the Treasury had never been run more efficiently. But what Trump calls efficiency, the rest of the world calls exploitation. Under Bessent's watch, job growth slowed to a crawl. The so-called economic recovery was driven by speculation, not real industry. Artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency, two of Trump's favorite talking points, generated billions in market value, but created almost no jobs. Ordinary Americans felt nothing but rising costs and shrinking opportunities. And yet, the administration kept calling it a success story. When you peel away the slogans, what's left is an economy that serves the rich and punishes everyone else. Every major Trump policy follows the same pattern. The Middle East peace deal was tied to real estate ventures involving Trump and Jared Kushner. The tariffs on China benefited Trump-linked companies. And now the Treasury itself is being used to protect private investors. The government has become an ATM for the connected few. This is what happens when power is treated like a business deal. Trump never saw the presidency as a duty. He saw it as a brand. Every position, every appointment, every handshake had a price tag attached. Scottbessent fit that vision perfectly. He wasn't chosen to protect the economy. He was chosen to control it. The symbolism of 1789 Capitol makes it worse. That year represents the birth of the American Constitution, the beginning of a government built on transparency, accountability, and trust. Now it's being used as the name of a company that undermines all three. It's as if the founding principles themselves have been turned into a logo for greed. But the truth has a way of leaking through the cracks. As investigations into the Argentina deal continue, more evidence emerges. Bank documents show overlapping interests between Bessent's associates and Treasury contracts. Whistleblowers report pressure to fast-track approvals for certain firms. Even foreign journalists are starting to ask the same question. Is the U.S. Treasury being run for the public or for the president's friends? The answer is becoming impossible to deny. The system is being hollowed out from the inside. The watchdogs have been replaced with loyalists. The economists who once advised caution have been silenced. And the money? Your money is flowing in only one direction, upward. Bessent isn't the cause of the problem. He's the symptom. He represents the disease that spreads when accountability disappears. When power becomes personal, institutions die. The Treasury, the IRS, even the Social Security system, all are now being bent to serve political and financial interests. And what's the result? A nation more divided, more unequal, and more vulnerable than ever. The people who are promised prosperity are getting nothing but higher bills and broken promises. The elites who are supposed to be reined in are richer than ever. Trump calls this America first. But when you look closely, it's always Trump first, his allies first. His donors first, everyone else last. This isn't leadership. This is sabotage. Trump is not draining the swamp. He's redirecting it. The money that once flowed through normal government channels now flows directly into his network. The corruption that once hid behind closed doors now sits proudly on stage, smiling for the cameras. Even as the scandals pile up, Trump remains defiant. He says it's fake news. He says the media is out to get him. But the numbers don't lie. $20 billion sent to Argentina. Millions raised under the false pretense of government sponsorship. A Treasury secretary with personal ties to the beneficiaries of every deal. This is not coincidence. This is a pattern. And, like every pattern of corruption, it ends the same way in collapse. The economy may seem stable today, but it's built on sand. The more Trump manipulates the system for short-term gain, the more unstable it becomes. And when it falls apart, it won't be the billionaires who suffer. It'll be the taxpayers. That's why this story matters. It's not about politics. It's about survival. The Treasury Department is supposed to protect the nation's financial health. But under Trump, it has become the weapon of its destruction. If you think this can't get worse, it can. Unless people start paying attention. Unless lawmakers demand investigations. Unless citizens refuse to accept corruption as normal. Because silence is not neutrality. Silence is surrender. Trump has broken the one department no president should ever break. He has weaponized the Treasury against its own country. And he's done it while smiling, while claiming victory, while telling the American people everything is fine. It's not fine. It's falling apart.